So yes, as I was saying, I know that some of y'all are uh, have emailed me about some issues with the discussions as well as other things. So that's what's going to be on tap for today. So uh, along with that, we're also going to discuss the signature assignment. We need to do that because we haven't had a chance to discuss that, and we are already going to be coming up towards, it's almost the beginning of the end of the semester, so we do need to get that going. It's kind of hard to believe that the semester is already winding down. It seems like we just started, but yeah. Um, so we'll get to that today, and then we'll start on our chapter discussion. We're gonna go to since we do need to try to make up some time. We're going to start on chapter 7 tonight. Um, we'll see how far we get with it. We'll try to see if we can come back to 6 later on, but for sure we definitely do need to start on 7 because we do need to get to, I was looking at the dates in terms of how much time we have, so we definitely do need to try to pick things up a little bit. It's not y'all's fault. This is just it's just been a really crazy semester with some of the health issues I've had. I mean, I went to the doctor today. Um, they gave me something and all that. So again, I'm glad that you all are being patient and all that. Now, okay, I'm kind of all over the place. Let me start over. Let me start from the beginning. Now, let me start first with the discussions. Now, I posted a long announcement. Did you all get to see that announcement or no? That discusses that what I've been seeing when it comes to the discussions. Have y'all had a chance to look at that or no? Okay, good. So, and again, and I think this is probably something that I should have emphasized more at the beginning of the semester, but I noticed that the discussions are good. Okay, the discussions are not bad. They're actually very, very good. You all are doing a very good job on them, especially when it comes to the initial discussions. The initial post, almost all of you all I have no issues with. That's definitely, you all are doing very well on that. The trouble spot that I'm noticing is the responses. The responses I'm seeing are, they could use some improvement, right? I'm seeing still a lot of 1-2 sentence responses, and that's not what the that's not what the rubric that I have for the discussions is asking for. So basically, the requirement for the that I have on the rubric is that all of the responses have to have at least 5 sentences at a minimum. And of course, not just 5 sentences of whatever, it also has to be 5 sentences related to the topic. So having said that, I've also posted in the announcement that you can go back and you can make those corrections, okay? And I will still grade those. All right. So just go ahead and make those, corrections. I'll see on Blackboard if you've made a correction. So you don't necessarily have to email me. You can if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to email me to let me know that you made a correction. I mean, like, you can if you want to. I'm not saying don't email me. You can if you'd like to. I'm just saying that I will get that notification. I will see it on Blackboard where it shows that it's something I need to grade. It will pop up again. So I will, when you make those corrections, I will try to grade those as quickly as possible. I finally am caught up, for the most part when it comes to the grading. So, because like I told you earlier in the semester, I had a lot of things come up. So thankfully, I'm pretty much caught up. So now, you all should have a good idea in terms of where you all stand when it comes to the discussions and everything. And you all are doing well in the quizzes and the primary source exercises as well. So you all are doing a good job on everything else. Like I said, and also with the test, if you all would like to redo the test, like I said last time, you all are welcome to do so. And there's no time limit. You can use your notes and all that. So you all are more than welcome to do that. I do need to get you all the study guide for the second test. I'll try to do that this weekend, and then we're gonna see. Maybe the second test we don't have to. And remember what I said? I said to you all, right? Remember I said that I can give you the option to either show up in person to take the test, or if you want to do it online. So, but maybe we'll see if maybe the second test, maybe we don't have to, like, maybe we could just do it strictly online, because I think we would still meet, the necessary times if we just did the third test on the final, where I would go and meet, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So don't worry about that. So right now, don't really worry about that. Just worry. What I want you all to be on the lookout for is the study guide. Let me get that to you all. Try to get that to you all this weekend. So that way you'll be able to study for the second test, and hopefully you all will be able to do much better on this one. I'm sure you all will, now that you all will have you all will know, like, you all will have access, to your notes and the book and all that stuff. So I think that'll be a good thing moving forward. So does anyone have any questions about anything that I just went over? The discussions, you can redo them, and I'll grade them, and I'll change your grades. Of course, provided that if you do better on the revisions, then hopefully that'll boost up your grade. And anything else? Oh, one more thing also before I open up the floor for questions. So all of the discussions are now open. There's a couple that we're going to skip because for time for time issues. So if you don't see the discussions, don't worry about it. There's a couple that we're going to have to skip because, like I said, for that reason, that I just don't want to bombard you with too much work. This weekend, I'm also going to open up all of the rest of the chapters, so you all are free to work ahead if you all would like to. I know chapter 8 is already open for you all, so feel free to work ahead if you all would like to, and I will get those open for you all, so that way you all can already start working ahead if you all would like to. The retest is well. It's not mandatory. Well, I take it back. I'm going to say that yes, because I mean, it's going to be too, because I tried like seeing if I could, like, okay, who wants to and who doesn't. It's going to be too much work. It's going to be way too much work to keep track of who wants to retest and who doesn't. So, but I will say this: if for some reason you don't do as well on the retest, I'll just go with the previous grade. Okay, so you don't lose anything. You're not going to lose anything, for that. But yeah, just I would still recommend, yeah, to go ahead and retake it. And then if you do worse, I mean, I don't think you will do worse because you're gonna have there's the provisions, like, there's no time limit, as well as you can use your notes. But yeah, but if for whatever reason you do worse, then just let me know, and we'll just take the higher grade. So that's not gonna be a problem. Okay, so does anyone else have any other questions about any of that? Any questions? Okay, no questions. All right, okay. All right, so then let me go ahead and share my screen here. And what I want for us to do is I want for us to go over the signature assignment here, okay? So let me go ahead and go over here, and then let me go ahead and go over here, and then I'll show you what it is. Okay, so let me actually, okay, yeah, let me share the screen right now. Okay, and I'm also going to post an announcement on this as well that it goes into detail on this, for the students who weren't able to show up, and I will upload this on my YouTube channel as well, so that y'all can look at this. So okay, all right. So then let's see. Okay, so if you scroll down over here, you'll see where it's a signature assignment, history 1301. Okay. Now, what this is, everyone. Well, let me get to this really quickly. Now, what this signature assignment is, I don't know if you all have had a chance to look at it. What this is basically a capstone project for the class. I'm sure some of y'all have taken classes like this where you have like some sort of like capstone assignment or capstone essay or capstone project where you basically try to take everything that you've learned within the class and you apply it to this final project here. And the reason why we have a signature assignment here in our class is because the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, which is the organization, the board that oversees all the colleges and universities in the state of Texas, they set forth certain learning outcomes, certain objectives that you all are responsible for demonstrating within your classes. And some of y'all might have seen some of these. You may have seen some of these in some of your other classes, because again, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, they're responsible for setting the curriculum for all of the courses, all of the programs, all of the, everything that has to do with higher education in the state of Texas. They are responsible for approving all that. So one of the things that they have made mandatory is that, like I said, for every class that you take, you have to be able to demonstrate certain core outcomes, such as communication skills, critical thinking, social responsibility, and personal responsibility. So what this signature assignment is going to do is that this is going to be an easy way for you all to demonstrate in this class that you all are able to demonstrate communication skills, that you can think critically, that you also have, both type of responsibility, social responsibility and personal responsibility, and that you're able to demonstrate it within this signature assignment. So yes, you can demonstrate it throughout the class, and there are other ways for you all to be able to demonstrate it throughout the class. But at the same time, this is an easier way to to do that, right? Where it's easier to just check off all the boxes here. Okay, so you completed the signature assignment, you did it well, so you can check off all these different boxes here. So it's better. It's a better way to categorize this. And this is also something that the department does collect data on. I know not just my chair, but also our I guess you could call him, like, I guess he's kind of like our lead faculty member, that he's responsible for, for a certain group of us there in the department. He also sends me emails and asks me to compile this data and send that information to him. So yeah, so this is definitely something that's extremely important. And it's also something that is also important when it comes to, like, me, like, in the department and all that stuff, so I definitely want to keep my job in the department. So definitely, please definitely do take this seriously. And that's why I wanted to take some time for us to go over it today, so that you all could already, have an idea in terms of how to do this. All right. Now, okay, so does anyone have any questions so far about the requirements in terms of, why we're doing this? Because I definitely want to be upfront with you all, and for the sake of transparency, I definitely want to let you all know in terms of why we have this assignment here. This is not something it's not something just to create for you all to keep you busy. Now, that there is a purpose and a reason, and an important purpose and a reason for this assignment here. Okay, so let me just check. No questions? Okay, all right. So with that being said, so what the actual assignment is, this is the description. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to analyze a historical debate. So for this assignment, you will analyze the following historical issue from the first half of U.S. history. You will need to compare at least two opposing issues on that issue. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to write about a specific topic that that was something that was very how do I say this, that when we're looking at this idea of a historical debate, there's gonna be a topic, which I'm gonna let y'all know what the topic's gonna be right now. It's going to be a topic that has pretty much dominated the discussion throughout American history, in American History Part 1. And so the issue that we're going to take a look at is the slavery issue. Okay, so the slavery issue is the topic that you're all going to be writing about within this signature assignment. And the reason why I wanted to go with this topic is because it fits perfectly to the requirements here within this this signature assignment essay. Because have y'all noticed that has been a huge recurring issue throughout U.S. History Part 1? I mean, we've been talking about it, right? But we're going to talk about it even more, and then eventually we're going to get to the Civil War, which culminates in that debate. And the fact that we had to fight a civil war over slavery, that's why I wanted to pick it, because it's a great topic to write about in terms of just how divided the nation was during during U.S. History Part 1. I mean, for us, I think it's the quintessential issue that defined U.S. History Part 1 in terms of the major political issues of the time. Does that kind of make sense, or not really? Let me go to the chat really quickly. Does that kind of make sense in terms of what I'm saying as to why
Yeah.
that's a good topic? Oh, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So it's definitely something that has a huge recurring theme within U.S. History Part 1. So that's why I feel it would be perfect for this assignment, because that way you can analyze how it started, what were the events that led ultimately to the Civil War, tied into the slavery issue, and then ultimately its resolution at the end with the Union defeating the Confederacy, and then ultimately with the passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, especially the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Maybe also look at the Dred Scott decision in 1857. I mean, we're going to talk about all that later on towards the end of the class, but this is definitely something that I want you all to start thinking about here. So, okay, so now that you have the topic, now part 1 is the introduction. So describe in general the issue that is debated. For example, you may analyze the importance of this issue important to the culture, economics, political system, and social structure at the time. So again, there's tons that you can do with this topic. This isn't something that's very obscure, because as we're going to talk about later on, we're going to get to just how engrossed slavery was in the American South, and like I said, ultimately caused for the Civil War to be fought. we have to look at the, what was the cultural impact of slavery, especially when it comes to like the economics, right? I mean, if you look at this, right, all of these factors are tied into this, right? When it comes to, to the reliance of slavery in terms of the economics of the American South with the large plantations, the political system. I mean, we're going to talk about the Three-Fifths Compromise later on in chapter 7, and how that also was very important and was necessary for the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. The social structure. I mean, the way the American society was set up in terms of how the plantation owners, basically, they basically profited and exploited the, the labor of the slaves and all that, right? So there, again, this is not going to be hard to write because there's tons of information there where you can write about this. Part 2, the historical debate. What is the main argument in each perspective? So again, you're going to look at both sides to this issue, right? You're going to look at, the unionist, northern abolitionist side in terms of, and also look at how that side ultimately morphed, right? I mean, if we look at how that originally the main competing viewpoints was not necessarily to abolish the slaves, but to keep slavery from spreading to the West. That was the original major viewpoint that Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party at the time that had been founded in the mid 1850s, that was originally their main concern. That was what they stood for. It wasn't necessarily that they wanted to free all the slaves. That wouldn't come until Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which was the step in the right direction to ultimately get the slaves to be freed. But originally, Abraham Lincoln and the former Whigs and the Republicans, they just wanted to keep slavery in the American South. So you look at that argument, but then you also have to look at the other side, right? In terms of, why did the Southerners want to keep their slaves so badly? You have to look at, like I said, the economics. I mean, this would have been detrimental to, the society of the American South, because the economy was it was an essential part of the economy. That slave labor was essential to the economy there. So you have to look at and again, and we're not, and I'm not trying to take the South side in terms of, obviously, of course, absolutely horrible, wanting to imprison people and all that stuff. What we're talking about here is we're looking at what were the reasons for why they were fighting, right? Because they still had their reasons, right? Even though, of course, we can say, obviously, they were not good reasons, but we still have to look at the reasons, because obviously the South had a reason why they wanted to fight the Civil War. So, so definitely do look at those competing viewpoints here. Analyze the evidence that is provided to support each thesis, right? So what types of evidence are used? Does the evidence support the thesis? So again, so you're going to go back to looking at, again, going back to what we're talking about in terms of the rationalizations that were being made by both sides here. What is the evidence that points to the arguments that are being made on the Union side, like on the North side and the Southern side? Cite some of those examples. Now, you can do all this from the book. You don't necessarily have to look up outside sources. I mean, you can if you want to. That would definitely be, very helpful in terms of you all, writing, about this topic here. But definitely do, but definitely do make sure that you're able to, to look up what you can, and and definitely try to supplement that, not just with your readings, but maybe look up other outside sources as well. Okay, and then the conclusion here, how did the readings change the way in which you understood the subject? Okay, now we're also going to get into something that is also really interesting, because you're going to tie this issue to some current national and contemporary issues, okay? So that's what leads, so we're going to get to that right now. So again, so what I want you all to do for number 4 here is, as you do more research on this topic, are there things that maybe you didn't know about, like, and I know a lot of you are going to write a lot about the Civil War, right? Because that, of course, is something that, and I guess, we could probably title it, instead of, even, so maybe a better way to put it would be like, not just slavery, but also slavery slash, the Civil War conflict, right? So that's probably what we would look at in terms of, if we look at, the opposing sides. In fact, that's probably what I think would probably be like a better way to look at it, right? Is maybe look at, if we're looking at the historical debate, maybe take a look at the historical debate that caused the Civil War, right? which obviously, of course, for the most part was slavery, but also look at the idea of states' rights, because that's another argument that was being made, right? So yeah, so I think that'd probably be a better way to say it, right? Is when we look at the historical debate, look at the debate, obviously involving slavery, that ultimately led to the Civil War. So that's kind of like, so I guess we can kind of tie it into both, right? Because for the most part, you're probably going to do a lot of writing about the Civil War itself, because this is when that issue was ultimately settled here. Okay, so again, so how did the readings change the way in which you understood the subject? So again, if you look at these readings, definitely, when you look at the readings here, definitely, like I said, look to see that, hey, did these readings, help clarify, the situation? Did it help, bring some light to some of this? Number 5, how are the issues presented in the reading still relevant to you today? Please explain how your personal background and life experiences might influence your perspective on this topic. Now, 5 and 6 are pretty much, they're very similar in that this is where you're going to start to do your own reflection. You're going to start to reflect on, the readings of this issue, and getting a better sense for, the conflict of the Civil War and what were the reasons for it. And with that, how is this something that you can reflect personally? Because if we go back to our learning outcomes, personal responsibility is something that is one of the learning outcomes that we're going to be measuring here. So when you look at this, take a look at this, how did you feel about some of this information? I mean, this is where you can get, kind of give your own personal opinion. I mean, what did you think about reading about, this conflict, right? When it comes to, like, the institution of slavery in general, right? And then ultimately culminating with the Civil War. I mean, what did you think about, maybe some things you could think about is, like, what did you think about this idea that we had to fight a civil war over enslaving people? Maybe think about things like that. Like how does that make you feel? Like, that, hey, that we had to fight this war over this, this issue. I mean, this issue that, should it have been an issue to begin with? I mean, this is where you can start to give your thoughts and bring your own personal perspectives and how you see this issue. And another thing also is that, and I know this is true, everyone, because I'm even kind of sensing it here, like, as I'm explaining this to you all, we're living in very interesting times right now, where, like, I'm going to be honest with y'all, sometimes, teaching this stuff can be, it can be somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? It can make me a little nervous, you know what I mean? Like, because, like, did y'all kind of get what I'm saying? Is that there's been a lot of, pushback against, the teaching of history and how we present history. I mean, I'm sure some of y'all might have seen, what's been going on, like, in the school districts and all that stuff. It's getting to a point where, it's even getting like it as someone who teaches history, it's even something where, I have to be very, careful with how I present things, how I say things. And I don't know, it's just something that's, I don't know, like, well, let me ask you all this really quickly, since we're on the subject. I mean, what do y'all think about that? I mean, is what do y'all think? What do y'all think about that? I mean, are y'all familiar with what's going on right now with that, or not really? Because, like I'm being honest with y'all, like teaching this stuff, can be, it can be something that can be a little bit intimidating. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Leslie, you were going to say something? Or Camilo, you were going to say something, or was somebody going to say something, or? Like, yeah, feel free to speak. Like, what do y'all think about this? Because like I said, as I'm going over this, and as I'm even presenting this, it can be something to where, like, I don't want for anyone to feel uncomfortable, or for anyone to feel like, it's just something where it's just kind of, it's kind of difficult for all of us. I mean, I don't know, what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Because, the truth is that this is not happy history, right? This is something that it's very difficult. It's not good to see this. It's definitely not something that, we want to be, happy about. But should we shy away from teaching it, though? So Sergio says, we have to learn from, history to not repeat it. It's important. So I think, yes, and again, and now, and let me also be clear that the reason why I want for us to write on this subject is because it's one of the main recurring themes within U.S. History Part 1. Like, I just don't see how it would be possible to teach U.S. History Part 1 without teaching the slavery, stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I said, it's the main reason why we fought the Civil War. I mean, we don't like that. Obviously, it's unfortunate that it had to come to that way, but it still happened. And like you all said, right? We need to teach this so we can learn, not to repeat these things. I mean, and then you're going to get into U.S. History Part 2, where you're going to learn about the American Civil Rights Movement and the Jim Crow era, and how even after the Civil War ended, we still had rampant discrimination. So the American South, they couldn't keep, the African Americans as slaves anymore, but they weren't going to let them be equal. So they created, this second class citizenship where, they were segregated against. So yeah, it's definitely something that. And so, like I said, so as someone who teaches this stuff, I definitely try to be as careful as possible, and I want for you all to see this, for what it is. But at the same time, I agree. I don't feel that we should shy away from it. It's just that right now, times are very. It's tough right now. It's tough to teach this stuff right now. It's very tough to teach this stuff. And so I just, I guess I want y'all just to kind of understand that it's something that, I definitely try to be careful about. But at the same time, yeah, we shouldn't shy away from it. And like y'all said, we definitely need to learn from it. And like I said, it's definitely important that we look at this, because like I said, slavery is the main issue why we had the Civil War. So we do need to look at it, and we need to look at, what were the causes of it. Because in order to fully understand the Civil War, you do have to understand the conflict that caused it. And you have to understand the underlying, political issues that caused it. And we will get into that, like the 1860 election, and how that just really, the South was just not going to stick around after Lincoln was elected president. So, but we'll talk about that later on here. So, okay. So, and then of course, like I said, imagine number 6. Imagine that you have been asked to tackle a current national or global issue. How would you use the readings to help you do so? And this is another reason why I think this topic is going to be really good, because there's been a lot of contemporary issues, like with Black Lives Matter, and other issues that have been brought to the forefront when it comes to the treatment of minorities, especially when it comes to lethal use of force, by police officers, and has that lethal use of force, has it been justified? Those are the questions that we're looking at here in modern society. So maybe you could tie that in. You could tie that into how, are these events that are happening today, does it have something to do with what had transpired back during U.S. History Part 1? I mean, is there a connection there? I mean, again, it's something that only you can determine as to, when you're writing here in this paper. Is that something where, could there be a connection? And so what you're going to do is you're going to, if you're going to say there is, then you're going to have to back it up with, with the readings, and make your strong cohesive argument, if that is something that you all want to argue for. So again, it's up to you all in terms of how you want to go about this. But this is basically what the assignment is asking for. So does anyone have any questions on the actual and again, and a good way, like I said, if I was writing this, I would definitely put it like this, part 1 introduction, part 2 historical debate, part 3 conclusion. I mean, y'all don't have to, but it would certainly be easier for me, like if I'm grading it, to look at that. So the paper must be a minimum of 500 words, type double space using 12-point font. And again, this is not very difficult, right? So this is not going to be very lengthy at all. So 500 words, you could probably, I mean, I would say probably my recommendation, 500 words, what would that be, like at least, 2 to 3 pages, something like that, I think, double space. So yeah, so as long as you reach the 500 word minimum, and don't just write 500 words and be like, okay, I'm done. Like, you have to make sure that you go through this. Like, let's say 500 words takes care of your part 1 and part 2, but then you don't do the conclusion. Well, then, you can't just be like, okay, I'm done because I already did my 500 words. No, you do have to continue working with the conclusion here. So if you got to go a little bit lengthier, that's fine there. So okay, so anyway, okay, yeah, so this is okay, yeah, so this just goes a little bit more into detail on this. Okay, so yeah, this gives you a couple of examples. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on the signature assignment itself? We can see, yes. If you go to course materials, click on signature assignment history 1301, and it's this one right here. Okay. And I do have the final submission. I do need to update that, but yeah, this is where you'll turn it in. And this is the final, and it's not going to be due until the end of the semester. So that Sunday before finals week, I think that's I believe that's the 5th of December, I think. That's when it'll be due. Okay, so you can already start working on it already if you all want to, but make sure that you try to turn it in before finals week, so that way I can get it all graded and have everything done for you all by the time finals week starts. So okay. Okay, yes, that's fine. Yes, I'm going to upload the meeting. Yes, sir. Yes. So yes, sir. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? No other questions? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's try to let's try to start on chapter 7 for sure. We're not going to finish it tonight, but we'll definitely try to we'll try to finish it as quickly as possible here. Okay, so let me go to chapter 7. Now chapter 7 is also very interesting because this of course deals with the ratification of the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution. So this chapter, of course, is obviously one of my favorites because there's a lot of political science here. As you all know, even though I am a historian, I feel like I'm more of a political scientist than a historian. But yeah, so there's tons of really good stuff here. Now, what I want you all to definitely see in this chapter is I want you all to see the process that went through in terms of trying to get the U.S. Constitution ratified, because it was not an easy process. It was not something that the delegates were just good with at the very beginning. They did have a lot of agreements, but there were some issues when it came to the details of these in terms of coming up with the Constitution as well here. So but let's take a look at the beginnings here. Okay, so obviously, of course, the book talks about how there was tons of parades there after the ratification of the Constitution in 1787, and that was really important because it sets the tone for just how much work went into this thing. There was tons of negotiating, tons of compromises. This was not something that was a for sure thing. It was not for sure that the U.S. Constitution would get ratified. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this and see, like, what were the struggles, what were the key issues that the country was facing at the time, and then ultimately the founders of the framers of the Constitution, what were the key issues that they had to look at when it came to constructing this new form of government? Because also do remember, everyone, like we mentioned in our recently, remember that this is the first time that a country of this size, of this magnitude in terms of land size as well as population, has ever tried this format of government before. Because remember, at the time, monarchies, aristocracies, these are still the accepted forms of government. It's not like the way it is today, where now it's the opposite. Now, democracies pretty much reign supreme across, the civilized world. It's almost the opposite. Right now, we have very few monarchies, and most countries are democracies. But this was the first real attempt at a democracy at that scale. So what I want you all to see here as we go through this is that the framers had a very difficult task of trying to get this thing to work, because they really didn't have a model for this, right? They were doing this not necessarily blindly, but they didn't have like they didn't have like a model to go off. They had a blueprint, but they didn't really have like a model to go off, because again, they were the ones who were kind of constructing this here. So, but again, let's take a look at some of the issues here. Okay, now again, a lot of people forget that the first working constitution, and I use the term loosely, was the Articles of Confederation. Now, the Articles of Confederation was the first written constitution in the United States. It was, as you can see here, the Articles of Confederation was constructed our government very differently from what we see today. It's not like the way it is today, where you have the Congress with the two chambers, the House and the Senate, a presidency, and like a federal court system. No, it's not like that. The Articles of Confederation basically had a one house Congress. There was no president and no judiciary. It was, when we look at the Articles of Confederation, everyone, what I definitely want you all to get out of this is that when the government was first forming, after the United States had gained their independence from Great Britain, The people of the United States, especially the people at the top, right? The framers, the educated elites, these people that were at the, that were, basically in charge of everything for the most part. They were very concerned about having too strong of a central government. And this is something that we've talked about before, right? Remember, they just fought a revolutionary war to leave the British Empire, to do things their own way, because of how they had been treated by King George III and all those soldiers that were being quartered in their homes. And remember, we talked about the Declaration of Independence, all of those different factors. The secret, the shadowy police and all that, with these general warrants and things like that. Coming up with these false charges and things like that. All of this shadow government type of thing. The last thing that the American colonists wanted was to go back to that, but under like Americans, right? So they didn't want to, like, I always like to say this, they didn't want to replace one King George for another. Like, they didn't want to, and when I mean this, I mean like George Washington, right? So they didn't want for the United States to just simply operate like the way Great Britain did, because that's what they had fought this bloody Revolutionary War for. So they wanted to get as far away from that as possible. Like I said, I compare it to like I mentioned last time. Remember I said how, like, when you move out of your parents' place, you're going to do things your own way, right? You're not going to do things exactly like your parents did, because if you did, then why would you leave? Like, you want to do things your own way. You want that freedom. You want that liberty to do things however you want to. So it makes sense that the United States would want to do things as differently as possible from the British. So that's why we have the setup of the Articles of Confederation, where the states basically had almost all the power. The only powers granted to the national government were those for declaring war, conducting foreign affairs, and making treaties. So basically, the only things necessary in order to engage in international conflict, right? So when it came to the actual day-to-day governing, that was left up to the states. What I want y'all to think of when we think of the Articles of Confederation is the Articles of Confederation was basically, think of it as like 13 different countries. They call it like a league of friendship, so to speak, right? In terms of how it was written. So it's not like the way it is today, where we have a strong national government and then we also do have strong state government. The national government was basically non-existent. It basically had pretty much nothing to do with state affairs. It mostly just dealt with foreign policy issues. Okay, so that's why it's called, so it wasn't the United States back then. It was basically, you could call it just the states, because there was nothing united about the United States back then, because the states were basically kind of doing their own thing and they had almost all the power here. Amending required unanimous state approval, and then no proposed amendment was passed because you needed what it was it was a supermajority, right? You needed a 2/3 vote for any in order for any law to be passed, right? So in order to amend, in order to amend the Constitution, in order to amend the articles, you needed unanimous votes from all the states. So that's why it was never amended, because good luck getting all the states to agree on something. And they really couldn't pass much laws either, because you needed a 2/3 vote, so again, it was this idea of the supermajorities, right? So the only major thing, I guess, the only major thing mostly that that Congress was able to accomplish was the facilitation of land out in the Northwest Territories here. So Congress established national control over land to the west of the 13 states and devised rules for its settlement. So this means is that the national government was able to facilitate the territories up there in the in the what we would call the Midwest now, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, those areas. Back then, of course, it was called the Northwest, because that was the Northwest frontier of the United States at the time here. So Congress in the West. In the immediate aftermath of independence, Congress took the position that by aiding the British, Indians had forfeited the right to their lands. Interestingly, because as we talked about in Chapter 5, it wasn't like every single Native American was against the Americans, right? Some of them did support them, right? Some of them were neutral, right? Some of them didn't get involved at all. So a few of them supported the British, but it wasn't like all of them did. So it's interesting. Just kind of think about that, right? That that yes, that was a very easy policy to put forth, but was it actually factual? Not necessarily, right? Obviously there was a lot more to that story. But again, this wasn't something that was a big of a concern for the Americans, because Americans, and we're going to see this, we're going to see that this idea of manifest destiny, come up again, right? This idea that it was, the duty and the responsibility and the that it was destiny, right? Like it's called, right? It was the destiny of the Americans to travel out to the West, from sea to shining sea, right? That was and so this is another example of this, and we'll talk more about manifestation later on when we get to the Mexican-American War and all that. But anyway, so then Congress faced conflicting pressures from settlers and land speculators regarding Western development, and we're also going to see how the book talks about how that these were competing factions that were occurring, right? The settlers were wanting for the government to help them with being able to purchase land at an affordable price. But then you had some of these land companies and these land speculators that they didn't want for the government to get involved. They wanted for the private companies to then, for the sake of, in the name of free enterprise, to be able to, to sell that land, to the settlers, and make a profit off of that. So this was the conflict, right? Who should have had the major role in administering the land? Should it have been the government, or should it have been the private sector? And that's something that we still talk about even to this day, right? There's still discussion between like liberals and conservatives in terms of how they view the role of government when it comes to private businesses here. Okay, so settlers in the West. So peace brought rapid settlement into frontier areas. And what we mean by that is that, and of course there were a variety of different methods in terms of trying to get the Native Americans to move off the land, whether it was to purchase it or engaging in treaties. Taking possession of land was seen as an essential element of American freedom. Like we said, this idea of expanding westward, moving westward, because at the time, after the Civil War, I'm sorry, why do I keep confusing those two? After the Revolutionary War ended, I guess probably because we talked about the Civil War a lot earlier today. After the Revolutionary War ended, remember that part of the Treaty of Paris here was that the United States gained land all the way to the Mississippi River, right? So states like modern states like Kentucky, again, like Ohio, Illinois, Alabama, Mississippi, all those modern states here, Tennessee, those now became part of the United States. So it made sense that with that new land being open and available, that the settlers would want to move westward. Settlers ignored Indian titles to land and urged low prices for land. Like we said, that it was rather the framers actually talking about this, right? That they talked about how unruly some of these settlers were, and these people moving west, right? And we'll talk about, and you all know that, right? You all know that stereotype, like with the wild West, right? Not this type of West, but as we progress, later on in American history, you all have heard of the wild West, right? In terms of how the lawlessness out there. So that was also happening here, but in the Midwest as well. And then leaders feared that the unregulated flow of settlement across the Appalachian Mountains could provoke constant warfare with the Indians. So again, so they didn't want to just be fighting the Indians constantly. They wanted to have some sort of semblance of peace, because remember, they have been fighting them for years and years, decades and decades, even centuries, right? So they wanted to kind of try to have some peace with them, and they felt that if we had too many of these people moving westward, that would just push the Native Americans even further, and that would aggravate them to want to act out here. So okay, we'll pick up the land ordinance next time, everyone. So so we'll get here, we'll get to the ordinance of 1784, and then hopefully we'll see if we can finish that up. So yeah, I know we didn't get to go into too much detail, but we did need to cover the signature assignment. So hopefully next time we'll be able to go more into detail on this. Okay, so okay, everyone, yeah, because I do have to go, because I have I do have another class I have to get to right now that's going to start in a bit. They're going to start at 8. So let me go to end here for today. So does anyone have any questions before we leave for today? Does anybody have any questions? Any questions? No questions? Okay. All right, everyone. Okay. All right. So like I said, one more thing also, everyone. So as I posted in the announcement, I believe I posted it. If not, I'll post it again. The deadlines, they're not deadlines. They're soft lines or soft deadlines, whatever you want to call them. Whatever is due, just try to turn it in as soon as you can. All right. Don't worry about the due dates or whatever. I'm not gonna mark it like off or anything like that. Just, try to get everything done as quickly as soon as you can, and I'll still take it for full credit. Okay. So don't worry about that. Okay. Don't be stressed out. Camila. Okay. So yes, I can talk. Yeah, I can. That's fine. Yes. So yeah, just turn it in, when you can, try to see if you can turn it in by that deadline or the soft line or soft deadline, whatever you want to call it. But just know that I'll still accept it. Okay. Okay. So if there's nothing else, let me go ahead and end for today. Thank you all so much. And we will see you all next week. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all so much. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Leslie. Yes. Yes. That's yes. I'm gonna get to those because I just needed to catch up on the discussions that you all had turned in more recently. But now that I've caught up on those discussions, I'm going to go back and do the regrades. Okay. I'll grade the redos. Okay. So yeah. So just hang tight on that. I'll get to that. Now that I'm already caught up on the discussion grading, I'll be doing the regrades. Okay. So thank you. Okay. Yes. And thank you for letting me know. Okay. So yeah. So let's see. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so y'all are free to go, everyone. Okay, so y'all take care, be safe, and have a good weekend. Have a good rest of your day, and enjoy the nice, cool weather. It's very nice outside. I have my windows open here in my room. It's really nice. Let's see. Okay, Camila. Okay, Camila. Yes, go ahead. You were gonna ask me.
Yes, it's because I'm worried about my grade because I go down a lot. Sign. I had not made the answer to the description of the other. So the others, I only published my discussions, but I did. I already did them, but I don't know if you can change my grade with. I respond 3 discussion of my of the others.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I was explaining to Leslie just right now that that yes, that I'm going to grade them, and I'm going to and hopefully you'll do better on them. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry about that. You know what? I need to stop recording. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. So